Oh. Caffeine is definitely needed for today. There's a song that sort of goes, I wish I knew what I knew now when I was younger. And I think that applies to photography as well. There are things that I now know that I wish I knew when I began my journey into photography. And I'm going to sort of tell you some of those things. So yeah, grab yourself some caffeine, coffee, any other way you want, and stick around. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another video here at Benham Media. My name is Nathan and it's an absolute pleasure to see all of you here today. Thank you so much for clicking on that thumbnail. So photography is a journey. It is a sort of like so you start off with not knowing much, and as you go through and you're constantly learning things with new cameras, new tech, new gear, new software, editing, everything like this. So to say that you go into it knowing everything is obviously no one gets into that sort of mind frame. And you know, there are wonderful platforms to try to learn as much as you can before you start on this journey. YouTube being one. I've learned the majority of what I now know via YouTube, as well as talking to friends who also are in this industry. So I thought what I would do is that I would just sort of make a quick little video on this wonderful Sunday afternoon after a massively busy week, just to sort of like highlight some of the things that I would suggest a beginner should just concentrate on so they can start taking better photographs and just sort of like develop their skills a bit better. So it's not rocket science. These are quite basic, they are quite simple, and they are easy steps to follow. So if you are a beginner and you are looking to start your journey into photography, I hope that this video helps you. So let's get into it. There's only a few little notes, so you don't need to worry about it too much. But yeah, let's get into it. So number one is nail your exposure on the camera itself. There are many ways that you can do this just to make sure that your photograph comes out perfect in every single aspect. I have been guilty of walking around, taking a shot, looking at the back of the camera and thinking, yeah, that is perfect. But once I get it into my software and start editing, I realize that I've messed up somewhere along the lines. One of the ways you can do this is obviously learn the triangle of shutter speed, ISO and aperture, and try to get that sort of like marrying itself up. You've got this wonderful little dial at the bottom of the camera as well, where it sort of, if it hits 0, that is perfectly exposed according to your camera. And also you can sort of like use your settings to adjust that as much as possible. But a really good tool to use to make sure you are nailing your exposure is your histogram. Pay attention to your histogram. You can get it up on the screen in your camera and it is perfect. What I'm talking about is that sort of thing that looks like a bit of a heart monitor. Like I put like sort of a diagram probably around about here for you. And it's everything on the right hand side is for your blacks and shadows, everything on the left is your whites and highlights, and in the middle is your midtones. And if it is peaking to either side, which if I had it on my thing right now, this little area right here, which the window when the sun's coming through, it would be peaking because it would definitely be overexposed. And obviously the shadows, so you want that to be like a nice sort of easy flow going across. So take the time to make sure your exposure is spot on when you are taking your photographs, because it means there'll be less work going into sort of the editing side of it to make sure it's sort of like your photo comes out the best that it can. So yeah, nailing your exposure is definitely a great way to make sure your future photos look a lot better if you start putting this type of practice in now. So yeah, use the tools that your camera offers you to make sure your exposure is spot on every time. And yeah, that is quite an easy one really to sort of figure out. And I think we should just move on to the next bit of advice. Now what I mean by clear your frame is quite simply, generally I am guilty of when I'm out shooting street photography is that I will see a shot that I like, I would take the photo, and then I would just sort of simply move on. It's not until I get back home and I start editing it, I see something that really frustrates me. It's a bit of chewing gum, it's a poster, it's a bottle, it's all these sort of random things that just sort of like make my picture look ugly. And then I have to take time in Photoshop to try to sort of clone it out. So when I sort of talk about clear your frame, once you have a photograph and once you've taken your photograph, have a little look at it. Is there anything that you see on the back of the screen that you think this could be improved? By simply moving a water bottle, getting that sort of like poster out of the way, or simply just moving yourself. The shot that you've taken, it doesn't have to be sort of there and then. If you sort of step slightly to the left or slightly to the right, would that make that shot cleaner? Would that make that entire shot, would get rid of that lamppost or that bollard or that poster or that sort of like construction worker who's just in the way? Just take a little moment to go, right, clear your frame. Have a look at the back of your camera and have a look to see if what you see on the back of your screen or through the viewfinder, if of course you do use it, and see if it's a nice clean frame. Because like most of these tips, the more you can do there and then in camera before you take it back to your editing suite, the more easy and workflow your entire process will be. So yeah, clear your frame. Take time to make sure you get that perfect shot. Sometimes you are gunning and running, so you don't always get to do that, but if you have the time, take your time. Clear your frame. Simple, easy. And yeah, let's move on, shall we? Now this one might be a bit strange, a tripod. As a street photographer, I like to travel quite light. I'm walking around, I'm going around a city, I don't want to have to carry a sort of a bulky, rattly tripod on my back constantly. You know, I'm climbing up things, I'm jumping down things, and the less gear that I have to take with me, the more comfortable I am walking around. But there has been times when I've seen a shot and I've gone, God, I wish I had my tripod. Because the benefits of having a tripod is quite simply is that, say you're in a bit of a darker area, it's like the cloud cover's terrible and you don't want to feel that you need to bump up your ISO to sort of compensate that, you know, you need a decent shutter speed because your hands shake. With a tripod, you can bring your shutter speed down a little bit to let more light into your sensor so you keep your ISO at a decent level. So that means you don't get grainier photos, which means better photos straight off the bat, just by simply having a tripod, just planting it down and sort of like releasing the shutter speed, slowing it down. Your photos will be sharper because your ISO doesn't need to be high up. Also, it's a great way as well of getting long exposure shots. We all love a good long exposure shot. So that ghosty image of people walking through your frame, the water looking silky smooth coming down that waterfall, or just those sort of like light trails coming past these sort of like as the traffic moves. And a tripod is the only way that you can sort of like nail these shots and improve your photography straight away. Yeah, don't get me wrong, they are the biggest pain in the bum when you're trying to carry them about. You have to literally sit there and it takes time as well. And I know photography does take time, but to get that perfect shot, sometimes taking time is actually worth it. And you might look a bit of a nana sat in the middle of the road, honking a great big tripod all over about. But do you know what? If you look like a nana, then just go with it. Because at the end of the road, you are going to get a beautiful photograph at the end of it. And you know, you can get some really nice lightweight tripods out there now, and you know, you don't need to invest hundreds straight away. A nice sort of box standard small one, like my little vlogging one that I use, can sometimes be just as good. But yeah, a tripod can definitely help improve your photography, especially if you're starting out. Right, this last one is, it sounds quite simple, but it is something that I am definitely guilty of not doing, and it's be thorough with how you take your photographs. Now, a lot of my work is my own personal work, means I go out, I've got my camera set the way that I wanted, and I can just sort of go off and take the photographs that I want. But sometimes when I'm working with clients, like for example, I'm working for a company right now who only likes me to shoot in JPEG because it means the files are smaller. So I have my camera set while I'm working with them in JPEG. But when I'm out by myself, I like shooting in RAW. But the other day, I spent the entire week shooting for this client in JPEG, in small resolution as well. And then when I went and do some street photography, I completely forgot that that's what I'd done. So I shot my entire day in small resolution JPEG. And once I finally got them back into Lightroom, the editing process took me a lot longer because I didn't have the information that I generally have with my files. Yeah, RAW is a lot bigger file, but when it's personal, it's a bit better, but sometimes a client only likes JPEG. So check your settings. Make sure your, again, exposure is spot on. Your histogram, your little level at the bottom there is hitting 0. Your shutter speed is where you want it. Take your time. You don't need to rush to be a good photographer. You don't need to sit there and just go gun and run all the time. Sometimes there is that moment when literally a split second, that photo will never exist again. That is street photography. But if you've got the moment, and if you've got the choice to sit there, check your exposure, get your tripod out, check your settings, make sure you are comfortable with your entire surroundings, and all of a sudden your photography will literally go and rise straight up to the top level. And again, it will gain you confidence in your own work. It will give you hopefully more likes on social media, and then all of a sudden you feel more comfortable to be a little bit more gung-ho when it comes to your photography. But when you are beginning and you want to make sure you're doing the best that you can, these little tips could potentially help you to start you out. So yeah, that's it. That's all I think I can sort of tell you today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, and you feel that you've learned something new, please consider liking this video. It really does help with the algorithm on YouTube. And if you really do like me and you've seen many of my videos before and you haven't yet done so, consider hitting the subscribe button, because you know, I like those numbers going up. It makes me feel good, and you know, you could have the opportunity to make me feel good. So yeah, that's something, I guess. But guys, I'm gonna leave you to your day, your afternoon, whatever you are up to in and around the world, and I hope to see you in the next video. If you've got any questions, comments, or comments, please hit them down in the comments below, and I look forward to reading them. And yeah, until next time, guys, enjoy your time. Bye. I've really got to get something for that window, don't I? That really has blown me out. Maybe having the white reflector there hasn't helped either. Do you remember that thing when I said be thorough? I wasn't thorough when I made this. I rushed setting this up. Maybe I should listen to my own advice. That would help. See ya.